Hi all. So my name is Pepijn Schoen. It's a hard name. I'm Dutch. I work for Voya here in Bucharest. We're in business travel. Our main office is in Hamburg. I want to take you all back to what it was like to develop software in 1999. This was the tool of choice. Who remembers this? All right, Macromedia Dreamweaver. But before Adobe bought it, it was really good stuff. You would sprinkle PHP into your static web applications. You would then upload it to the server to see whether it actually worked. Or you would, if you were more advanced, you had your local MySQL and PHP server running on your computer, so you could actually see what it would be like. If you were to then deploy the application, what would you do? You would open up your FTP program, or you had it built into Macromedia Dreamweaver, and you would FTP all the files individually to the server. So fast forward to 2017, this was a clumsy process. Now we have much better tools, so the Angular CLI, for example, and also all the major tools have good command line interfaces for them, React, Vue, and Ember included. But when it comes to the deployment, you would copy your front-end application into the back-end application so that you have this strong coupling, and you cannot develop your front-end application outside of your back-end application, which really sucks. Or you would go back to the old days and actually FTP all your JavaScript files and your CSS assets over. Why? Just why? I've taken Angular here as an example, but React, Vue, all the same applies. ng-serve gets your local development server up and running. So what if I told you, instead of just doing ng-serve, you could also do ng-deploy? This is what I will talk to you today about. So I will talk to you about deploying applications with DeployJS. The basic idea is that you have a bootstrap index.html file, which you serve to the client, which points to unique fingerprinted assets, the JavaScript files and the CSS files that are hosted on a content delivery network. So whenever your client goes to voya.ai or example.org or whatever, they would be served this index.html file from a very fast cache, for example from Redis. It would point to these unique files, and every time that you want to deploy a new application, you simply replace the index.html file that points to new assets. So this thing comes from Ember CLI. Having so many front-end frameworks out there makes it great for cross-fertilization. I think many of the great ideas that come in Angular 2 come from Ember. I think many of the great ideas that come in Ember now come from React again. So I've spent the past 3 years working on Ember CLI deploy, and last year we tore it apart from Ember CLI itself, so it's now not dependent on Ember itself anymore. With it, you have your normal testing integration running. Testing coverage is pretty good, or the testing frameworks are pretty good across all the frameworks. You would have it running on Travis, or we would have it running on Bitbucket pipelines. Then every time that your test passes in your develop branch, in your master branch, or in your feature branch, you would upload this new index.html file with unique assets to your deployment environment, so that your QA people, that your designers can actually see what your application is like, actually test it out, and then flip the switch to actually activate it. You can even go a step further to do true continuous deployment by every time that your by having enough acceptance tests inside your application, that every time that your test passes, you actually update the live version of your application. So the only thing that you would need to do then is running DeployJS deploy to upload your new application. Let's go through converting an existing application. This is the Echoes player. It's a good open source project for learning Angular 2 or Angular 4. The only thing that you need to do to convert it is you need to install the DeployJS CLI on it, and you need to configure your build environment, configure the right plugins to deploy it to the build environment, and then run DeployJS deploy. So let me take you through it. Installing the DeployJS CLI, then in this case we're going to upload all our index.html and all our assets to S3. So you would need to create a bucket, and this bucket, and you would need to create the secrets for this bucket and then save those somewhere. There's a bunch of packages that you would have to install, but only for the development environment. Firstly, the Angular build plugin. This is a wrapper around ng build, and then all the specific plugins to upload your new version to S3. They are all prefixed with Ember CLI deploy, but it doesn't matter because we tore them apart. They are backward compatible with Ember CLI deploy, but it can also be used in DeployJS. You would edit your deployment configuration file to contain the different settings for the different plugins, and then all you need to do is run DeployJS deploy, and your website is deployed and ready. Let's dive into what happened, how DeployJS works under the hood. DeployJS is a pipeline that's composed of many hooks. For example, the configure, the build, the prepare, and the upload hook. Then there's many plugins, for example, the Redis plugin and the S3 plugin, that activate at different points in this pipeline stage. The first step then is the configure plugin, where the DeployJS configuration is read, where all the defaults are applied, so the default bucket in S3 that should go through the default ACL, and it would check whether the required configuration keys are actually present. So the S3 access key, the S3 secret, all these kinds of one-by-one configurable settings. In the build hook, like I said, it's just a wraparound ng build. So what you'll see is that it's just calling ng build for a production environment. Similar things exist also for React, etc. In the prepare hook, it would compose an MD5 hash of the index.html, which is then a unique revision hash to point to this specific version that you're uploading. And in the upload hook, it uses the S3 and the Redis S3 library and the Redis client to upload index.html to Redis to the specific revision hash, in this case 123 ABC, and it uploads all the fingerprinted assets to S3. In the last hook, in the activate hook, it sets DeployJS current to that specific revision hash. So then if you would go on the browser and request example.org !revision is ABC 133, it would get the specific index.html that is stored in Redis and serve that to the client, which points then to S3. DeployJS already works with Angular 1 or AngularJS, Angular with React and with Ember, but it's pretty easy to also get it running for Vue if you really like working with Vue. And there's a lot of other plugins also available there, like HipChat, being able to get notifications in Slack, uploading your files to MySQL instead, or uploading it to Firebase. If you search on npm search and search for the Ember CLI deploy tag, you will find, I think at the moment, 121 packages that do different things for your deployment environment. In case your deployment environment is different, it's pretty easy to write your own plugins to do your own kind of deployment step. In this case, let's try and write a plugin that notifies Slack when a new version is deployed. You would have to start from the base plugin, which is the Ember CLI deploy plugin, and we would use Node Slacker, which is a Node library for working with Slack. The name is the name that is specified in the DeployJS configuration file, so that there you can set settings like which channel to post it to, etc. And the create deploy plugin function is called by the framework to get back the actual plugin. These values, the default config values, they can be overridden in the configuration file, but by default this would post to the general channel with the username DeployJS. But something that you would have to configure if you want to work with Slack is that you need to set up the webhook URL to which it would post the notification. Then the deploy hook gets called. This is one of these pipeline steps, and the configuration would be read out. It would call the library that a new version was deployed, and when running then DeployJS deploy, you'll see also the notification in Slack. I think having a pipeline like this opens the doors for many other possibilities, like tracking errors throughout different versions with, for example, with Sentry, and there's also other tools for that. You can upload your source maps to there. Whenever you have a new version deployed, you can also actively see whether that specific revision caused a new bug to appear or whether it caused a regression to also reappear. And I think one of my favorite examples is that using it, you can also do phased activation, where you serve 5% of the users or a certain percent of users your new application. Using the feedback from Sentry, you would gradually roll out more and more people through the newer application, only if the errors are less than the errors in the older version, and then eventually you would only use the new application. So in my opinion, this is really how we can build software like it's 2017. Let me take you also to business travel. This is what Voya is about. Business travel looks like this. If you're used to consumer travel tools like Booking.com and Airbnb, they're great. But if you have to book for your business, the interfaces are super clumsy. We are trying to create an application which, with natural language processing, tries to capture the intent of the user and then serve them the right options in the application. If that is something that you're interested in, or if the deployment process is something that you're interested in as well, come and talk to me in the break. Thank you.
Sorry, Pepijn, that took me rather by surprise.
I won the rap battle.
You want a rap battle?
I won the rap battle.
Oh, cool.
No, I don't want a rap battle, at least not with you.
Quick question, how does the AI work in Voya?
It's a good question. You can see it as a sort of a tree hierarchy, where the first thing that you try and do is capture the intent of the user. Mm-hmm. So you see whether it's a flight that the user wants or that it's a hotel that the user wants, and from there you drill down and see for what kind of parameters the person wants to travel. So what kind of start date, what kind of end date. So we try to feed in many text examples that result in different structured travel options.
Excellent. And it's available now?
It's available now. It's available for businesses, though.
Any businesses out there? You know where to go. Are there any questions from the floor? That's enough. Thank you very much, Pepijn.
Thank you.